Hello, everyone. We are on the third session of our lecture for this webinar. And this is your third lesson, and it's a lesson on character. So I hope you still remember the first lesson. So, our first lesson is all about influence, second lesson is all about priorities, and third lesson is all about character. Now, how do you unleash your inner leadership potential or how do you do that? So it takes character. John Maxwell said the reality is that leading ourselves is often the most difficult task we face every day, right? It's very difficult to have self discipline. It's very difficult to have, to form habits that are actually healthy. If you watch my practical guides to distance education for students and teachers, I mentioned there that I was trying to form this habit of waking up early. And um a part of me is disappointed on myself with myself because of the fact that I was not able to do it every day. It's like, you know, a part of me is like, why were you not able to come to do all you set out to do? For example, your waking up early. Just last night I was able to sleep very very late because I was doing some of the things that I need to do for the next school year. So I'm doing my PowerPoint presentations, I'm doing some recordings, and because of that I was not able to see the time, and I was not able to actually sleep early so that I can wake up early. So it's very difficult to lead ourselves, right? And with that premise, character plays a very important role when we talk about leadership, because if you are if you will be if you only will be able to deal with yourself, deal with your character, then you will be able to become a leader or a better leader than you are right now. Now, there are four dimensions of a good character, and let me talk to you about them one by one. First one is authenticity. So when we talk about authenticity, it has something to do with being true. You know, um, people will not trust your word if they find you be lying to them or being not being credible. So when we talk about authenticity, most leaders will go towards the lines of emphasizing their success. It's like a compromise that they do when they compensate success for their weaknesses. So they overemphasize their success. And most leaders will just try to cover up their weaknesses because they don't want to look weak in front of their people. Now, this is one thing that I've learned, that and as I've told you earlier, that people will relate better to you you're if they can actually see that you are not perfect. And people know that you are not perfect. It's in their mindset, but sometimes they put you on a higher pedestal because you exude this aura of being perfect. Like, you don't show them your weakness, and you don't want them to know that you have weaknesses. If that's the case, then how can you minister to them in your brokenness and your weakness, and how can they relate to you if you do not make mistakes? The most relatable characters in history, in film, in stories are those people who are underdogs, who have weaknesses, who have quirks, that they are that the people who are reading them or looking at them are able to to actually relate to them also having weaknesses. And if you're a leader and you want to be a good leader, you have to know how to be authentic. You have to know how to be vulnerable, but at the same time, not really being very weak. For example, let's say, for example, you divulge a weakness to the people you're leading. Let's say, one of my weaknesses, let's say, is not being able to wake up early. But next to that is how are you doing? What are you doing to actually deal with that weakness? So that is also being authentic, that you are doing something to improve yourself. And that will fall on to the next point that we're looking at good characters, and that is self management. When we talk about self management, it says here by Thomas Kempis, be not angry if you cannot make others be what you want them to be. You cannot even make yourself be what you want to be, which is actually true and somehow in our faces, right? You want your kids to, be what you want them to be, and that will prove to be a problem because um you cannot even manage yourself. So as a leader, it's very important that people see you as being self-disciplined. Or as parents, for example, as I've told you before, when you want your children to sleep early, you have to sleep early with them. If you want your children not to be addicted to gadgets, you as a parent should not be addicted to gadgets as well. You have to know how to manage your time in you have to be disciplined in terms of using your social media. So if you want your children not to rant on social media, you yourself should contain or prevent or stop yourself from ranting on social media. Because if you do that, your children see you do it, then it takes, it gives them a precedent, like my mom did it, so I can do it. Okay, so if you want, you know to become a good leader, you have first to manage yourself before managing or trying to manage others. Because if you're able to do it for yourself, then it's easy for them to actually see you do it as you model the example and copy from what you are seeing or from what they are seeing. The third dimension of a good character is humility. Now, this is a struggle for me sometimes when we talk about humility, because when I was growing up, some of my classmates told me that I am so arrogant, and that I always say what I can do. I always flaunt to them what I'm good at. And that is something that I struggled with when I was younger. It was a constant struggle because I don't want my potential or my talents not to be shown, because I know that I have them, so I know that I need to show them. However, I need to balance the arrogant side, that you should know when to show your talent or when to keep silent. And this is a struggle that I had when I was young, and probably one of the reasons why I was bullied while I was growing up. So humility is uh is not actually diminishing your potential as a person. You will not. It's different from false humility. For example, you presented a good presentation. For example, there is a group presentation, or you took a quiz, and then you know for a fact that you got perfect on that quiz, and then you will say, "Oh, I didn't even study." That is not humility. That is false humility, and people will see that as arrogance. So do not do false humility. For example, you presented and then you said, "Oh, I did not prepare," but obvious from your presentation that it was fully prepared. So, you don't. That's false humility. Humility is that even if you succeed in a certain project, or in doing something, you excel at that, you will not speak for your work. You let your work speak for itself. And I guess what that's one of the problems with us Filipinos. We do not know how to take praises, right? So for example, people will praise you for doing good or doing well in whatever you did, and then you will just say no, no, it's not a big deal, or uh n- no, no. So you don't accept the praise, but you like, no, it's not, no, that's not true. When in fact the praise is true. So the right and correct response to people praising your work is thank you, or thank you for your appreciation. It's not false humility like I did not prepare. It's just, so that is something that we should not do as leaders because it will only show that we are somehow arrogant. Okay? So you have to be really humble. The fourth dimension of a good character is courage. But before we go to courage, let me give you a workshop on humility. Okay, so on a piece of paper, I want you to write down 10 weaknesses that you have. Just write them down there, 10 weaknesses that you have. And then on the opposite side of that paper, I want you to write down the name of a person whom you will ask for help so that you can overcome that weakness. So, as leaders, we have many weaknesses. Mine, for example, will be waking up early or, prioritizing. That's one of my weakness. So, how can I improve on my prioritization? So, I need to find out a person in my life who's good at prioritizing or is good with task management, and then I'm gonna write their name down. So my mom is, I think she's one of my idols in terms of prioritization. So she's really good at task management. So in my notes, I wrote down that one of my weaknesses is task managing or managing my time. Then I'm gonna ask my mom how she does it because she's a career woman, and at the same time she uh she's hands on our studies, and at the same time she works a full-time job. So I want to know how she does it, and then she cooks, she does a lot of things, and I don't know how she is able to do that. So I want to learn more about that. Another thing that I need to learn more is about budgeting. So that's my weakness. So I need to learn something about budgeting. So what are the weaknesses that you have? So writing down the weaknesses that we have actually makes us reflect on the things that we cannot do yet. It keeps us humble because we have not achieved the pinnacle yet, the peak of our leadership potential. And because of that, we want to, improve on ourselves. And asking help from people is a humbling experience, right? If you know that you're not the expert on that field and you want to really know a lot more about that field, you need to ask people about their experience or their expertise. If you're and that is a very humbling experience. So if you want to work on your humility, then you can do this activity with us. So just write down the 10 weaknesses that you have, and opposite that, please write down the people who you will ask for help to so that you can overcome that weakness. Okay. So the fourth one, as I've said, is courage. Courage helps us do what is right in the face of fear, uncertainty, and pressure. As a leader, you will be facing some situations where your integrity will be tested. And, sometimes if you do not, let's say negative things about another person, probably you might not, stay on the position because they are oppositions. So if there is a test, this is the test of character, wherein will you choose to be courageous, and despite of the fact of there is pressure for you to do bad things towards another human being, that you will not do it. You will stand by your virtues and you will not follow the negative things that other people are doing. And in terms of uncertainties, it takes courage for you to lead despite of the fact that there is an unsure thing that is happening, and or your position might be might not be that secure because of the courage that it took you to say something. For example, there is an injustice in the organization and you need to say something. It takes courage for you to say something, to to defend another coworker. However, that will speak of your character. And character is one of the most important things that a leader can have. It's the foundation of your leadership. Many people are saying that there is a problem with the workforce now, that they say that some millennials or some Generation Z have a very poor character because they just enter a job, and then when they find difficulties in the job, they will just resign and find another job, and so on. Compared to the other past generations, that despite of the injustice, they just stay there. So there are pros and cons to each generation, but it takes character. It doesn't matter from which generation you come from. It boils down to character in terms of leadership, in terms of sticking to it, in terms of whether or not you will succeed. It boils down to your character. So I want you to do some self-assessment on your character now. Are you leaning towards, are you a good person, or are you leaning towards a mean person, or a person who easily gives up? So you probably need to change something about your character, and you have to work on that to unleash your leadership potential. And that is the third lesson that we have, and that's the last lesson that we have for this webinar. I hope that you're able to get the three passwords that we have given you along the way, and I hope that you gain something from this webinar. We cut it into three different sessions so that it's more palatable for those people who have a shorter attention spans, so they can finish each session in their own time. So I hope that you learned something. And on my next webinars, please stay tuned for the announcement for that. And I will, please do not be shocked if I will be uploading some lectures here that are not webinars. So it's up to you if you will view them, but I encourage you to do so as well to support the channel. So we'll be uploading some lectures, and most of these lectures are on the nursing field. So um, please bear with us if you're a teacher, and if you're not a student nurse, then it might not concern you. But if you want to learn something about that as well, then you can view it. So thank you very much for being with us and for continuously supporting Everyday Learner. We hope to see you on our next webinar. And thank you for all the love. Thank you for all the support. We are looking at the messages that you're sending us, and it just overwhelms it overwhelms our hearts, because your words are just so sweet to us. We so appreciate it. So thank you so much for continuously for your continued patronage of Everyday Learner. Again, I'm Ma'am Cherry Durante, and this is Everyday Learner PH. Thank you for your participation. God bless everyone.